5 years ago, I was a pretty ordinary college student. I didn't really have a clear direction, no real discipline, no strong sense of where my life was going. I lived like most people in their 20s do, drinking regularly with friends, going day by day, thinking that things would somehow figure themselves out. 5 years later, my life looks very different. I work as a project manager at an education company. I go to gym 5 days a week. I take my hobby seriously, pursuing to professional level. I read every day and I stop drinking. I've also published multiple novels while still being in my mid 20s. So, yes, it seems like there was a lot of change in my life, but you know what hasn't changed? That you aren't still chosen. I originally started this YouTube channel by uploading videos related to guitar. So some of you who've been subscribed for a while might be wondering why I suddenly started talking about topics like this instead. A few years ago, I actually mentioned that I wanted to shift the direction of this channel, not to stop uploading guitar videos, but to make this space more about the long-term journey toward my ultimate lifetime goal, becoming the best guitarist, singer, and writer by the time I become 60. And over time, I realized that sharing only how I practice, how I work out, or what gear I use doesn't really capture what the journey actually looks like. What shapes an artist just as much, if not more, are the thoughts, the perspectives, and the internal conflicts that comes during the journey. So I thought it would be more honest and ultimately more valuable to start sharing how I think about my life as an artist rather than just showing the surface level routines that support it. So, yes, I am going through a heartbreak right now. And honestly, every time I experience something like this, I struggle to talk about it, mostly because there's a strange sense of shame attached to it. Being rejected by someone you were emotionally attached to isn't exactly something you feel proud of, and I've always found it easier to stay quiet and just carry it on my own. But I'm filming this video because this heartbreak feels fundamentally different from the ones that I've had in the past. Before, I would feel sad for a few days, process it, and eventually move on. This time, sadness isn't the dominant emotion at all. It's the anger. Like, I wake up in the morning and the first thing comes in my mind is I'm still here, still living inside this, and I have to endure it anyway. And throughout the day, there are countless small triggers, conversations, moments, observations that seem to amplify that anger rather than calm it. I've been trying to understand where this anger is actually coming from. And I think part of it is this realization that in the end, you're the only one who has to fully process your own emotions. The world we live in doesn't really know what to do with honest anger, and instead of meeting it with understanding, it often treats you as if you're immature simply for expressing it. The moment you open up, the responses are almost predictable. Friends, family, teachers, anyone, they tell you that you'll be fine, that you find someone else, or that they can't really relate because they are different. And suddenly you're left in this uncomfortable space where nowhere feels entirely safe to place what you're feeling. At the same time, there's no escape from the constant triggers, even when you're not looking for them. At work, you overhear people casually talking about their partners. When you're with older people like family or their friends, they ask you when you're getting married. You walk down the street and see couples that makes you wonder how they even became a match. And the moment you open your phone, it's filled with wedding photos, relationship stories, and gossips that you never wanted to see. So you try to do what you're told is healthy. You focus on yourself. You go to gym, you practice your instruments, you pour everything into work, but even that starts to feel hollow because then another question surfaces. After all this effort, after all this self-improvement, am I actually being rewarded for it? And that's how the circle keeps repeating itself. What makes it worse is that this isn't a problem you can simply solve it or fix it. There's no clear exit. You just have to endure it each day as it comes. And when you finally make it to the end of the day, when you lie down in bed and close your eyes, the question that lingers isn't about today anymore. It's about tomorrow and how you're supposed to wake up and do it all over again. At some point, you start asking yourself a question that's almost unavoidable. What did I actually do wrong to deserve this? And the most frustrating part is realizing that there isn't a clear answer. Because if I'm honest, the only thing I'm guilty of is taking responsibility for who I am and how I live my life. I try to be disciplined, I try to be honest, I try to take ownership of my choices instead of blaming circumstances. And now it feels like I've reached a point where there's nothing left to lose. Not in a dramatic sense, but in a quiet one. You look back and realize that you genuinely tried everything you were told was supposed to matter. You did the work, you showed up, you carried your own weight, and yet what becomes painfully clear is that there simply aren't that many people who can actually feel the depth of who you are. That the very thing you worked so hard to build inside yourself is something most people can't even register. And because of that, I don't feel ashamed making this video, but I won't lie either. Watching people who put in less effort, who takes less responsibility, move effortlessly through happy relationships makes me feel infuriating. And that's where I've arrived at the decision. I'm done forcing myself to stay hopeful in a dating market that constantly makes me question my worth. I've already done everything I can to raise my value, to become someone solid and grounded, and even after that, I'm still the one that people hesitate over, and that costs me pain. So I'm choosing to let go, because I'm tired of bleeding for an indecision that isn't mine. At this point, I don't feel like I have much left to lose, and maybe that's why filming this doesn't scare me anymore. When you've already faced your own wounds honestly, showing them stops feeling like weakness.